The hills are alive with the sights and smells and tastes. Come on. It's a food show. Now, nothing says autumn quite like apple. Whether it's a trip to an orchard like this, a warm slice of apple pie, or cheering with cider. But when did apples become the apple of America's eye? I left the Big Apple, and I'm here in Massachusetts, where America's history with apples actually began. So today, we are going to get to the core of how apples became a homegrown hero. How do you like them apples? Time to head out of Studio 1A and hit the road for a new kind of culinary adventure. Follow me as I taste some of the most iconic foods around the country and meet the families behind them. Together, we're going to learn how a good meal has the power to connect us to our past, our future, and each other. My family and I have been coming here to Hilltop Orchards in Massachusetts for the past 20 years. That's right. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better fall family activity than apple picking, and especially the apple cider donuts. And of course, what also pairs well with a trip to orchards? Cider. And they make a lot of it here at Hilltop. Oh, and did I mention the donuts? Meet David and Sarah Martell, high school sweethearts who reconnected in their 30s. Together, they run Hilltop Orchards.
We're definitely an apple orchard, but we're also a winery and a cidery, so we're a triple threat.
Today, David handles the operations of the orchard, cidery, and winery, with Sarah focusing on guest experience. The orchard's historic cider mill, where David played as a kid, was renovated in 1997. Now, they call it home.
I started coming to this orchard when I was about 6 years old. My father worked here then.
David left the Berkshires and worked in construction for several years. When he decided to return home, he really went back to his roots, taking a part-time job at Hilltop.
I've been in the orchard business for about 12 years now.
David's the third generation in his family to work on the 100-something-year-old orchard. Did you ever think that you would be running the orchard someday?
Not in a million years. I quickly fell in love with these apple trees and decided that's what I'm going to do. Diving in and learning about all the different apples and the history of apples.
And that history is pretty sweet.
I like to think of myself as an apple nerd. My name is Amy Traverso, and I'm the senior food editor at Yankee Magazine and the author of the Apple Lover's Cookbook.
Crab apples are the only variety indigenous to North America. Sweet apples were introduced to America by early colonists in the 1600s.
Sweet apples have their origins in this area of western China, sort of the border between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, called the Tian Shan Mountain Range.
Those apple seeds came over with the Jamestown expedition, and trees were planted at Plymouth. But in the early days, colonists weren't making pies and tarts. Most apples grown in America at that time were more likely to be turned into cider than eaten.
Apples played a very important role when there was people coming from England. As they say on the boat, they would make hard cider because that cider would last, where water might spoil and someone would get sick.
This trend continued stateside. By 1775, 10% of all New England farms had a cider mill.
Today, I am at B.F. Clyde's Cider Mill in Old Mystic, Connecticut.
Meet Amy Harrison and her daughter, Sarah Monk, 5th and 6th generation owners of Clyde's.
We're the last original steam-powered cider mill in the United States. Back in, the 1800s, early 1900s, everybody had a cider mill that had a farm. We use the same press, it's the same mill, and not many people get to go to work and put their hands on a lever and say, you know what, my great-great-grandfather did this same thing back in 1898.
Cider was really important to early America because it was relatively easy to make. People had apples in abundance. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams famously loved it, drank it every day. Children drank it because it was low in alcohol, but it was often safer than water. Water could often be contaminated at that time.
These days, Americans don't drink as much cider as the founding fathers.
Two things happened to kind of bring the apple to its knees. We had immigration from Germany and Czechoslovakia, which were beer growing regions. Beer took over as the major American drink.
Another reason behind cider's decline?
Prohibition. Apples were very strongly associated with cider at the time. They were really seen as a source of alcohol.
My great-great-grandmother was arrested twice, never convicted, but arrested twice for bootlegging.
In the 1930s, Apple's sinful image was reborn as shipping methods improved. Sweet apples from Washington State could be transported all over the country, and the industry grew.
Apples then had to be remarketed as just a dessert thing, as something you bake with or eat fresh from your hand. And so apples, they went through this rebranding and emerged as this sort of innocent, sweet fruit that wasn't going to get you drunk or do anything naughty. It was just going to make a nice pie.
Now, even hard cider is making a comeback, due in large part to the craft beer boom in the late aughts.
Gluten's having a moment, so people are shying away from a lot of beers. Cider is fermented apples, and that's it. Where a lot of other beverages or mixed drinks or anything of that nature could have a lot of preservatives and different things added to them.
Today, Americans are drinking 10 times more cider than a decade ago, and that's meant big business for Hilltop.
Most of our guests are cider enthusiasts that are relatively new to the cider craze.
Hilltop making around 1,500 gallons daily, and I got a chance to give it a try, or a press. They say time to make the donuts, it's time to make the cider.
So here's some gloves. I see you brought your boots.
Yeah, I did. The process starts with freshly picked apples that are washed thoroughly. Next up, culling. As Benjamin Franklin once said, the rotten apple spoils his companion.
They're sorting through what's coming down the conveyor. This apple has some dings and bumps.
The good apples are sent to the grinding wheel.
And they will get ground up to an applesauce consistency.
Now it's my turn to prepare the ground apples for pressing. So it's like an apple sludge diaper.
That's it.
Then the apples get pressed down to the last drop. That's 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. Up until this point, the process for sweet and hard cider is the same. Excellent. And nobody got hurt. Sweet cider would be bottled at this stage. For hard cider, the fermentation process begins.
So sweet cider becomes more popular once we can refrigerate apple juice to prevent it from fermenting.
In the mid-20th century, cider stands and apple picking became an American pastime, a tradition my family's enjoyed for more than 20 years each fall. There's just something about apple picking that inspires my best dad jokes. What apple sayings have you heard?
There's a lot of insider sayings.
Okay, I got one for you. Again.
Okay.
They say the family that plays together stays together. The family that picks together sticks together.
There you go.
As far as my kids are concerned, my jokes are as much a part of our annual tradition as the apples themselves. It's like, oh, Dad. My family's been coming to Hilltop for more than 20 years, even before my two youngest were born.
I don't know if it's something about the season when apples ripen and it's starting to get cooler and you're thinking about like comforts of home and coziness. People have very intense emotional connections with apples.
Agritourism in the United States started becoming popular during the Industrial Revolution, when city dwellers looked to nature for recreation. Labor shortages during and after World War II saw farmers calling for volunteers to help pick crops. By the 1960s, enterprising farmers recognized America's love for apples. In the fall, the you-pick tradition became a profitable pastime at orchards all across the country. Is there a right way and a wrong way to pick an apple? Spoiler alert, there is a wrong way.
The problem with twisting and pulling the apple is that if it is not ripe, you're going to also get next year's apple.
Can you show me?
I can. So this is an apple that I know is not ready to pick yet.
Okay.
So if we were to lift up on this, if it was ripe, it would come free.
Right.
So it did not come free. Okay. Right next to it is some Macintosh apples.
Okay.
And if you go ahead and lift up on one at a kind of at an angle into the sky, it comes free.
Like that.
So that means that it's ripe. Okay, and the other thing is, well, that's the worst thing you can do when you're picking an apple. So we treat these like eggs, and we place them in the bucket. There's sometimes little brown spots on them. That's from fingers. So the worst thing that you can do to somebody with a farm stand or a fruit grower is grab their apples and start squeezing them.
I do like the Honeycrisp.
Honeycrisp
Yeah.
it is.
I was Gala, but I've moved to the Honeycrisp. With an empty nest, I thought this year's Roker family trip was going to look pretty different. But then I heard from my boy at college. Nick was very adamant about, okay, are you going to come pick me up so I can go apple picking? Because I thought this will be the first year we don't have anybody to apple pick with. Much to my delight, the family that picks together does stick together. I only have pies for you. American Pie is certainly an American icon. And in Southern California, one local family's pies have achieved all-American status. And this holiday season, they're gearing up to make over 50,000 of these each week.
I love apple pie. Every time I eat apple pie, I think, man, my mom just hit it out of the park.
I'm Dave Smothers.
I'm Tim Smothers, and our mother started the Julian Pie Company in 1986.
From a young age, Liz Smothers developed a passion and a knack for baking.
She often tells the story of standing on a milk crate next to her mom.
I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I would crawl up on a box and take the little leftover pieces of dough and put them in a jar lid. I would put the little apple in my jar lid and cover it, and she would bake it in the oven just along with hers, and I would eat it. I would say that if I had not had that experience, I would never be in the pie business.
In the early 80s, the Smothers family moved to Julian, California, a picturesque mountain town near San Diego.
Funds were tight, so my mom ended up taking odd jobs.
When we moved here, I had to go to work. The only place that a job was available was in a bakery. And I tell you, after I started working with pie making, that old love just came right back.
That love was mutual. Liz's pies were in high demand at the local bakeries where she worked, quickly gaining a loyal following.
She had built up a reputation. There were stories that they would go in and go, I want one of her pies, and point at my mom.
A historic gold mining town, Julian thrives thanks to agriculture, namely its award-winning apples.
Once we came out here to Julian and she saw the opportunity, she just never looked back.
Wild horses couldn't have stopped me. Honestly, I was not thinking of how much money can I make. I just was dying to make a good pie like my mother made.
2 years after moving to Julian, Liz opened her own shop, the Julian Pie Company. She was 50 years old, proving it's never too late to embark on a dream.
My mom baked 120 pies, and she sold out the first day. It was a great grand opening.
In this shop, there's an apple pie for everyone.
It's the apple crunch with vanilla ice cream. It's not too sweet, and it's really fresh.
This is the most amazing pie I have ever had in my life.
From cherry apple to apple rhubarb, today, Julian has 15 unique apple pie varieties in rotation.
Thank you so much.
The most popular seller is the Dutch apple. My mom's kind of joke was that that's the pie that pays our rent.
Today, the busy bakers here make up to 10,000 pies a day. Pie production beginning around 3 a.m. It's no surprise that fall is their busiest season.
Thanksgiving's the Super Bowl, and Christmas is like another Super Bowl.
The pies are primarily made by hand, starting off with 4 ingredients.
Pie crust is just flour, water, shortening, salt.
That's it.
It's the way you handle the dough, so you get a nice short bread crust rather than a chewy crust.
The brothers say their mom had a gift for knowing just when to stop kneading to make it perfect.
If you don't get the dough right, you might as well not have the business. Miguel's worked with my mom. He knows exactly the precise measurements of how to do things. We add a few hundred pounds of flour, very ice-cold water.
The twin arm mixer blends the dough.
That's what I think of as grandma's hand.
The 400-pound batch of dough heads to the extruder, where it's cut into individual portions.
So a 9.2-ounce puck falls into a pie shell, smashes the dough into a perfect shape. Then they go into our freezers and we use them as needed.
Next up, assembling the pies. Apples are peeled, sliced, then spiced.
Cinnamon, sugar, and salt. This is all my mom's original recipe. There'll be a little bit of butter. Every time that dumps, I just get giddy. I'm like, yes, we hit it out of the park. So these pies have all been packed. They're nice and round, kind of like a mushroom. Patty's going to begin lifting, which is separating the crust from the pie tin. If you don't do this step right here, that pie will bubble over in the oven. My mom was a queen fluter.
The pies are brushed with an apple cider egg wash before baking. Then they're cooled, boxed, and ready to be shipped. Julian's pies are sold in hundreds of stores, including big grocery chains like Albertsons, as well as mom and pop shops throughout San Diego.
My name's Sierra Smothers. I'm Liz Smothers' granddaughter. I grew up baking pies with my grandma. This job was actually my first job in high school.
These days, Sierra pitches in wherever she's needed, including driving the delivery truck.
I said, Sierra, do you want to spend the day with your dad and help me deliver pies? And she, of course, jumped at the opportunity. So we had a whole day together delivering pies. Everybody loved it.
Julian now has 2 locations, employing almost 70 people. So many admire their company's founder.
It's the best spot.
No, everything I do is very, how would Liz want it done? Liz's perfectionism and attention to detail is really what's brought this company to the magnitude that it is. And if we don't carry that on, then what are we doing?
Liz passed away peacefully, surrounded by family in May. But her legacy lives on through the beloved recipes her family works hard to preserve.
I just hope that she's looking down and whatever that we do, we have her in our hearts and that she's proud.
Oh, this is where you get choked up. No, it's very special. I really miss her. She left a huge legacy with big shoes to fill.
As for the future of Julian, the Smothers continue to welcome customers old and new with open arms.
Come again, sweetie pie. That's my mom.
How do you make apples even sweeter? Well, you dip them in candy, of course. Kandy apples have long been associated with boardwalks and state fairs, but there's one entrepreneur in North Carolina who's taking this traditional treat to a whole new level with a colorful twist on the classic coating.
My name is Kim Battle, and this is my husband Travis Battle, and we are the owners of Kandy Apples by Kay.
Thank y'all.
I would describe Kandy Apples by Kay as the world's first hard candy apple shop. We specialize in the hard candy apple that started out with the traditional carnival treat, and then we've expanded that to different colors, different flavors.
According to most historians, American-style candy apples were invented in New Jersey in the early 1900s. They're known for that signature cinnamon-flavored red shell, until now.
I like the tropical punch. My favorite flavor is turtle.
I would certainly say that the variety makes them special.
For Kim and Travis, this treat has an especially sweet history.
Kandy apples have always been a favorite. My husband used to bring them to me when we were dating. And when I threw his surprise 40th birthday party, I wanted him to have gold candy apples as a favor. We found someone to make them, and then she encouraged me, you know, you can make these yourself. You could do this yourself.
Wanting to enjoy candy apples year-round, Kim began developing unique candy recipes at home. Her kids, her first taste testers.
Eventually, it picked up, and neighbors and friends would say, oh, I would buy some from you if you have some. And I thought, let me start an Instagram page and see how many people are interested in candy apples. At this point, I'm working full-time still as an accountant, and on the weekends I would start doing markets to offer these candy apples.
When Kim got laid off, she saw an opportunity to pursue her dream full-time.
There's never been a storefront that just focused on candy apples, and you love going in a cupcake shop and you're like, ooh, all the flavors and the beauty of having the case displayed of all these treats. And I thought that would be so yum to have the same thing but just in candy apples.
Kandy Apples by Kay officially opened in April 2019. A line of eager patrons stretched down the sidewalk on opening day.
Any dream of hers, I'm definitely going to support it. It's going to become my dream as well. So we took off with it.
Today, Kim and her team make over 40 different flavors and rotate their offerings each week. The process starts, of course, with fresh apples, that Travis picks up from local farmers markets each weekend.
Those are pretty.
In our opinion, the Granny Smith apple is the best apple to use. That tart, hard, crisp apple is perfect against sweet candy.
The apples are washed thoroughly in vinegar and hot water to remove that waxy coating.
And it creates a smooth surface for the candy to be applied to. In the candy apple world, this is a dirty apple and this is a clean apple.
The apples need to dry for 24 hours or else the candy coating won't stick properly.
Again, this might just be my opinion, but the more I've dipped, I feel like covering the apple all the way to the stick is ideal for presentation.
Kim's candy starts with a base of sugar, corn syrup, and water heated to 300 degrees. Then flavor extracts are added. She's experimented with dozens over the years, including blue raspberry, sour watermelon, and pina colada. And while we couldn't get her to divulge exactly how she gets those eye-popping colors, Kim did reveal one secret.
Making sure that you're using bright colors and that your candy is not transparent would also be a key to making sure that you have a beautiful apple.
Many apples get a little extra love with candy pieces or nuts. The store now offering a variety of dipped treats, including candied grapes and chocolate-dipped fruit. But the classics are always on standby.
Our family favorites are definitely still the carnival. The turtle, which is caramel, milk chocolate, and pecans, is also a huge favorite. It's one that we can slice and share with everyone.
And they really do mean everyone.
We have 5 kids ranging ages 2 to 22. They all contribute something different even to the family business, and they're very familiar with candy apples. They're so used to seeing them that I think the 5-year-old's first word was apple.
It was.
Elena, the couple's oldest, works at the shop. She also handles their social media to help boost business.
This is carrot cake.
I feel it's really brought her out of her shell. I mean, she was an introvert and very quiet, but this has really blossomed her into being a lot more outgoing and engaging in conversation with customers.
The younger kids continue to taste test while Travis pitches in where needed.
He works full-time, but still in the evenings at night, he's washing apples, he's stocking the store, he's getting all our supplies. I think often, like, I don't think I could have done this with anybody else but him.
Kim owing a large part of her success to a generation that came before.
Our moms played a huge role as well. Travis's mom was so precise in developing a process, and a lot of the ways that we dip and a lot of our little tricks and secrets came from her. And then my mom working the store, she was actually washing apples as well.
She's grateful they were able to enjoy her success early on.
Last April, my mother-in-law passed away, and after losing her, that was very traumatic and hurtful for our family. She was the matriarch of the family, and so 2 weeks later, my mom passed, and we weren't expecting that of, either situation. We are definitely keeping them a daily part of our lives, remembering everything that they've taught us and instilled in us, knowing how tickled they were about how far the business had come. I don't think there's a day that goes by that we don't talk about them or think about them. A lot of times when we're doing things, we can kind of feel their peaceful spirit with us and encouraging us and pushing us. And without that, I don't know that we could continue,
And just like their mothers, Kim and Travis are passing down many lessons to their children.
I believe some of the things that the kids have learned by watching Kim run the business is resilience, patience, love, and passion. You know, great job managing both.
Apples are a true American icon. At their core, they're a shining example of innovation and versatility, and their place in U.S. history is one of patriotism and pride. But most of all, they foster a sense of togetherness.